Welcome back, everybody, to Raw Sport. Season 2024 is upon us. And of course, we always have to start with a huge show and a big guest. Last time this man was on our show, the internet got broken, things went viral, and the industry went up in arms. How are you, buddy? How you going, Ange?
Good to see you, Ahmed. Good to see you, Tony. Thanks for having me back on again.
Yeah, likewise, Ange. Great to see you.
Absolutely, guys. I mean, and you're a dear friend, of course, but some big news recently. Some hard work has been put in by you and your team. You guys have been working around the clock behind the scenes. You've served the sport for many, many years, and now you've got pretty much one of the biggest deals in the country.
Yeah,
Boxing's got another network. Talk to us.
Oh, look, obviously there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, and we've been in talks for the last 12 months, I suppose, about getting this deal. We were in talks, obviously, with Stan as well, and would have been happy to. The main thing is to bring the sport to a wider audience, and we thought with one of them two platforms it would be the best. Channel 7, as far as I'm concerned, you can't beat it. They are the number one. We've got 27 million people that have the ability to tune in, and that's what's going to happen. And it's a matter of building the platform to get as many eyes to the sport with some of these fighters that haven't got that opportunity on other platforms.
So, Ange, to confirm, you and your constituents, or you and your business partners, have done a deal with Channel 7 to host boxing from 2024.
We've done a long-term deal. So it's not just a one deal for 1 year. It's a long-term deal to host boxing, to showcase Australian talent, to fighters that we believe can go to the next step to world titles. But hopefully we can make them household names. What we've got to understand is that it's 4 decades since we've had this. The Jeff Finnick days, the Barry Michael days, the Lester Ellis days. That's the real era of boxing. And that's what I think we've got to try and find is the next Jeff Finnick, the next Lester Ellis, the next Barry Michael. If we can find that young fighter, then obviously the sport will grow. But we need the country behind one or several fighters, which I think can happen. Will it take 12 to 18 months? Of course it will.
So let's specify that. Are we talking 7's main channel or 7 Mate or... 7
plus.
7 plus. So that is on your free-to-air television. They will see your fighters this year.
Yes. That means that virtually free-to-air in every household has the ability to see what we can put on show.
Oh, that's fantastic. That deserves a round of applause, Ahmed. Congratulations, Ange.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And in the context of things, what does this mean for the sport now? Like, how does this make things any different to what they are now?
Well, I think first and foremost is that, whilst the promoters at the moment are bearing the brunt because obviously we're going to carry the platform until we can prove what we're capable of doing, we'll be doing that because we believe in what we're trying to create. So we're carrying the brunt at the moment. But I think if we can bring some household names to our platform, then the fighters should benefit, the promoters should benefit, the trainers should benefit. And that is that, the money can be seen possibly in the next 18 months, I would imagine, 12 to 18 months. At the moment, the money's sort of been held on a pay-per-view platform, and whoever's got pay-per-view is the people that are making money. We want to change that. We want to make sure that, sponsors are everyday sponsors. A building company that might want to get behind it, an alcohol company, whatever it may be. We need people like that to get behind the sport so that we can start growing the purses for the fighters, getting the trainers paid, and of course, getting the promoters paid. So whilst that's not what our focus is, it'd be good to see that money can start coming back to us, especially money that we'll be putting into it over the next 12 to 18 months.
And this will bring a lot of confidence to the boxers of Australia who can now turn around and say, well, yes, I'm a tradesman or I'm a lawyer or whatever the case may be. Now they can focus more wholly and solely on boxing because there's more money involved.
100%. Well, just to give you an idea, on Wednesday last week, we had a launch. Okay, so we had the Channel 7 launch, something that we created ourselves because we wanted the public to know what was happening and where we were going with the platform. We had 350 people turn up, and I would say about 80 fighters. So,
and this was in Queensland?
It was in Queensland, yes. And so we held it at a venue called the Powerhouse in New Farm, which is central to the city. And it was the importance was it's the first, we're going there for the first time and doing an event. And the whole idea was to virtually allow everybody to understand and see what we're all about. And I thought it went off with a great, very well. The amount of
well done. We congratulate you on your initiative and Channel 7's to bring this forward and to do this for the community. Now, by extension of that, are these only going to be broadcast on 7 Mate, your shows in Queensland?
No, because we're already in talks with the Team Ellis, right?
In Victoria?
In Victoria, because we want to bring at least 1 or 2 shows to Victoria. And we're already in chats with the promoter in Sydney that we believe might be able to give us what we're after. Because obviously there's certain things that we can't move away from. So we will have our own team that has to travel. So whilst we'll do shows in conjunction with other promoters so that we can showcase everybody's fighters, not just Ace Boxing's fighters. We're only a small part of it. We need to be working with every other promoter. And at this stage, there's virtually almost every single promoter's on board and wanting to work with us. So I would hope that Melbourne and Sydney will showcase at least 2 shows this year.
Ahmed, it sounds like Ace Boxing is now going to head with No Limit after our last show.
I would phrase that differently, not head to head, concurrently, working together in different ways. Obviously, not as in partnership, but they coexist.
Well, are you going to pacify the situation?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I just
it's
believe
a competitive sport.
I believe the country needs the 2 options. I believe that if we think of it the way you just said it, it'll destroy the sport. Personally, that's what I believe. I believe it's now a platform.
I disagree.
It's now a platform where fighters can say, okay, Channel 7 is the biggest network in Australia. The Premier Boxing Series is on Channel 7. Now, do I go to No Limit where I'm behind the paywall, or do I go to the Premier Boxing Series where I have very regular shows, I have exposure to most of the country, and I can almost guarantee you, in terms of purses, there might not be that much of a variable. So unless you got news for us, Angelo, that's the way I see it.
Well, if I'm honest, we don't want to go head to head with anybody. We respect what they do. But they're on a completely different platform. And I think we need to understand that we are the number 1 platform in Australia. It's as simple as that. And we're not talking by a small margin. We're talking by a country mile. Okay. So the platform of 27 million people can't be duplicated by Fox Sports and even Stan, right? Can't be. So I think we're on a completely different level. When it comes to payment for the fighters, we're on about the same level anyway. They're not paying any more than we are. We're not paying any more than they are. I think we need to try and keep them at a reasonable level. It just means that at the moment, they're getting the money from pay-per-view, and obviously it's easier for them to be able to create events, whereas for us to create events, it's money coming out of our own pocket at this present moment. That's something that we've chosen to do because we believe in our platform, but it's money that's obviously coming out of our pocket. We're all well with that. All my partners certainly don't need the money coming from the sport. They're all doing well in their own businesses as developers and whatever it may be. So we're happy to continue. But of course, objective is in the next 12 to 18 months for us to obviously start at least making the money back that we would have lost.
There's no reason, Angelo, why you guys can't be in a position where advertising is a big source of revenue, where merchandise is a big source of revenue. Again, AFL is the biggest sport in this country with the NRL. Depends on who you ask, but anyway, they're the two biggest sports. There's a very similar scenario overseas in America. The UFC came out of nowhere and built a model based on these advertisers coming through, these commercial partnerships, so on and so on. There's no reason why this can't happen, and I think it will happen. It's only a matter of time. And honestly, the reach that 7+ enables you guys to have, it's crazy for advertisers to not think about joining and coming along.
So we're already in talks with major sponsors. So we're in process of doing that to get some major sponsors on board, obviously to soften the damage that's going to happen to our pockets, right? But we're not just relying on them. We've made a commitment, and we're going to stick to that commitment, no matter whether sponsors come on board or not, because they will eventually come. When we can prove the numbers to them, that makes it a lot easier. So I think it's just a matter of time. Look, one big thing that I believe that we need to talk about is everybody trying to work together, because what's happening at the moment, it's quite obvious that since our series was launched, well, since there was talk of it being launched, everybody's going out of their way to sign fighters for short-term or long-term deal, whether they're A grade, B grade, C grade, D grade fighters, they're getting signed in numbers, in droves. Now, the whole reason is because everybody's going out of their way to try and make sure that they can possibly make some good money out of it. Because today, what's going to happen is the journeymen are probably going to make more money than the A-side fighters, because they know they're going to be needed for the TV platform. That's something that we're trying to avoid. We work with everybody. We want to work with every trainer, manager, promoter. And if we can do that, I think it's the whole of Australian boxing benefit.
Ange, for all of your boxers and the boxers out in Australia and overseas, and for all the boxing fans, how many fight nights have you struck with 7 mates, and how many will be on each undercard?
Okay, so where we stand at the moment is that we've got a show every 3 weeks. So every 3 weeks, a show every 3 weeks starting on March 27, then we go to April 17, okay? And in between that, we've got a talkback show with Andy Raymond, who I personally believe he is the number one man in Australian boxing. So it's great to have him on board. He's a big plus for our platform. He's with myself.
He's Australia's most well-known ring announcer.
100%. And I mean, you know, others can claim to be that, and I have respect for others, so that's not having a go at anybody. But he is the main man. It's simple as that. He's got a voice of gold. There's no doubt about it. He's joined up with my son, Nathan Carlo, who's had 120 amateur fights, represented Australia all around the world, including the Commonwealth Games. As I said, travelled around the world fighting. He'll be commentating with him, breaking down the fights, what should be done, how does he want to see a fighter, break down another fighter, talk about the fight as it's going during the course of the fight. So I think between them two people, I mean, the sport's just going to be able to grow, and there's going to be a greater knowledge, because the knowledge behind the mic is incredible. I don't believe there's a pair as good as them two in Australia.
Well, they certainly won't upset the promoter.
No, definitely not.
So, to specify the fight nights, are you going to keep it sort of as we've seen in the past, sort of like 5 or 6 undercards and then into the main bout?
So we've got the availability of a combination of times. So you've got 240 minutes or 150 minutes. So that it depends on which show, you know what I mean, and where it is, or so like our first show, we're allowed 240 minutes on air.
Yep.
The second,
Is that as in consecutive minutes? So it'll be from say 8 o'clock until midnight.
that's right. Yeah. So it's virtually, the first show's a hard one because you've got daylight saving.
Yep.
And so obviously daylight saving means that we're starting a little bit later here in Queensland. We're trying to, I think we're going to kick off at 5:30, something like that. Yeah. So that it's 6:30 in Sydney. So we've got 240 minutes of air time. And then the April show will be 50 minutes, which will mean that some fighters will miss out being on air. Okay. That's just life. But the fighters that will miss out will be the 4-rounders, 6-rounders. And the whole idea is to build them into main event fighters and stuff like that.
Just one more from me to Ange. Ange, will all these fights, or the majority of, will they all be streamed and or shown live on 7, mate?
Absolutely. So sorry, we'll have possibly 1 or 2 fights leading into the program. So there'll be definitely a minimum of 4 fights, and most occasions 5 fights on air.
Very nice. Are we going to see anything different in terms of the broadcasts that we don't usually see?
Look, I mean, you have to admire what No Limits have done. They've done a good job in showcasing the sport, whether it be controversy between 2 fighters. I don't know that there's much more that you can actually do, to spice it up. It's just our fights where we're going to be bringing 50-50 fights, and that's what it's all about, is trying to bring some even matches. Everybody's well aware that I'm very happy to throw my fighters in the deep end, and that's what I'll be doing, is making sure that my fighters and any other fighter that wants to be on that platform has to be willing to be in a 50-50 fight.
Is there enough talent to cater the 2 networks, Angelo, in Australia?
Well, I think that's a problem that we haven't got, because our platform alone has enough talent, because I've probably got more fighters signed to me than any other promoter in Australia. So I don't believe we're going to have problems with talent. What we're going to have problems with is opponents, because locally getting Aussies versus Aussie is going to be very hard, because for the reason that I told you before, you'll find that, people are going to take their sides and they're going to sign with other promoters and other platforms. And so that it might be hard to get our platform fighter against somebody else's platform fighter. We hope that doesn't happen. We're putting everything in place to make sure that doesn't happen, and hence is the reason that we're working with some of the senior promoters around Australia.
Channel 7, how invested are they in this product? Are they all guns blazing? Are they just there? Because it makes a big difference. They have a lot of assets that they can, cross-promote fighters, fight nights, fight shows, so on and so on.
Well, look, just remember, when Fox Sports got into this many years ago, I done Fox Sports for 7 years, and everything was new to them as well. So they learned along the way. Channel 7, no doubt, will have the same problem. We've got Stan going through the same problems now that they're learning along the way. So it's going to be a process. It's going to be a process that we'll have demands. They'll have demands of us, what they want us to do. We'll have expectations of what we expect them to do to try and help us build a profile behind some of our fighters. I think that can happen. There at the moment, look, just at our launch, where the fact that we had 350 people with 80 fighters at the launch, that tells you how much strength we have behind us and how people believe in what we're going to be potentially putting on air. I think that's going to help us, and people are going to get behind us. And also that shows a clear message to Channel 7, our commitment, and that will force them to make sure that they get behind us in the right way.
Yeah.
Will 7 be using any of their own commentators that are, 7 Network staff on to the boxing commentary?
that's something that we're in the process of discussing at the moment. It's obviously Andy Raymond and Nathan. The whole idea is we want to bring people from the Channel 7 network into the commentary. We want to be able to have them interviewed at AFL games or wherever it may be, somewhere, a platform that has eyes on it. So then they get to understand is what we're trying to create. The whole idea is we need them. We need somebody from Channel 7 to join us on our shows to give us the profile to make these fighters bigger than what they are today.
So who's your ideal person? If you could choose from the 7 Network stable, who would you like to do it?
Look, to be honest, I can't even come up with a name. I mean, I think that's just somebody that has some sort of knowledge about boxing. And if he hasn't, we need to start educating him very quickly. But more than anything, I think it's somebody that's respected. That's all it is. I mean, you look at Andy Raymond and he's got that much respect. It's not funny. Anybody that can have a bad word about Andy, there's something wrong, because what he's done for the sport, whether it be an NRL or boxing, I mean, it's almost godlike. You know what I mean? Like, say whatever you want, but the guy is a genius. I mean, how he brings everything together is phenomenal.
Absolutely. So that's why I was asking you earlier, because Seven's got the AFL, which is probably the most watched sport in the country. And, you know, that cross promotion, every single fight night you see AFL stars sitting front row watching the fights. So there's a natural attraction by AFL players. So it'll be interesting to see whether that cross promotion does occur and how it could occur.
We expect it to happen. When it happens is a different thing. You know what I mean? It's going to happen over time, because they're in a learning process. We're going to have to ask them for certain things that we expect, and they're going to be wanting us to do certain things. But Tony, let's throw it back at you. Who do you think?
Yes, Ange.
Who do you think should be somebody that we should be looking at to put on the platform that can give us some respect?
Oh, well, look, off the top of my head, I would have thought Matt Shevington, but he might be too busy with Sunrise.
Yeah. I mean, obviously he's somebody that's respected. He's well known. We need somebody of that caliber. There's no doubt whatsoever. You know, that's what we want. We would love to see somebody. It'd be honourable, to be honest, because that's the.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Sorry, Ange. Sorry. I was going to say you could even manufacture somebody in Queensland, somebody in New South Wales, and somebody in Victoria, and then somebody in the Western states. Yeah. So you could have an identity from the network, so they could build on that person, and you can build on the promotion of the fight nights through. And you know that, you know, Queensland could be. I'm not sure of any of the names up there, but we could go through that. You know, it could be a female, somebody who is going to bring promotion and relevance to your fight nights throughout the Eastern Seaboard.
I agree. Absolutely agree. And I think it's good. We should be having some sort of a young female on the back doing some talking to the fighters before and after the fights. I like that idea. Somebody, again, that has a profile that
like a Mel McLaughlin. She reads the sport in Sydney.
Yep.
She's a good-looking woman. She knows her stuff. She could be one.
Yeah, that's what we need. We definitely need that. And it's just a matter of us breaking the fights down, breaking the fighters down to her, and maybe her doing her own homework. But I mean, obviously, we'll be all growing together, because this is a new platform and we're going to be growing together. The first thing we want to tell everybody is we're going to have our teething problems. That's fine. We accept that. We're willing to understand that in order to get better, we're going to make some mistakes, and we're going to get better as we go. And I believe we can do it.
So what about for your Sydney and Melbourne counterparts? When can we see your fight nights in the southern states?
I think Melbourne will be the first one. I was actually supposed to fly into Melbourne, and myself and my partners were supposed to fly into Melbourne last week, but I've just lost my father-in-law. So
apologies.
Yeah,
sorry to hear, mate.
No, thank you, mate. So because of that, that's held up them meetings. But we've got the funeral happening on the 6th of March, and straight after that, we'll be flying into Melbourne to have a chat with 2 promoters, and we'll see what happens there. Talk to them, and then we're heading over to Sydney and doing the same thing. I would hope to think that maybe in June sometime, June or July, we'll have a show in Melbourne.
Angelo, how have the fighters reacted to this, mate? You said there was 80 fighters at your launch. What's their feedback been?
To be honest, amazing. Like it's hyped everybody up. Everybody understands it is the biggest platform. There's nothing that's close. You can't even compare any other platform. It's now up to us to make it the best platform by creating something special.
Absolutely. I mean, it's very exciting times for Australian boxing, having the biggest network in the country backing it at the moment. And hopefully there's more that you guys can do together. Hopefully we reach the stage where the UFC and other sports are at, and the networks are throwing money at the boxing series, because it would be good to see those names that you mentioned earlier, the Phoenix, the Michaels, and so on. They're still talked about today, so it just shows, and they're respected today. It goes to show you that if it's done properly, it can be done very, very well. So there's a lot of hope. From my perspective, the one thing that I would like to see more of is the outside the ring talk shows, podcasts like this, talking about the fights. I think building that ecosystem that we don't currently have digitally, I think that's the key to the success of the sport, in my personal opinion. Because we saw that with the UFC for many years, they had cable network that they paid for, but their digital ecosystem and their infrastructure digitally is what really took the sport to a whole new level. And I really believe these niche sports, if they're done right, if podcasts start talking about them more, like what we're doing today, and cover the fight nights, cover the fighters, that critique, that feedback, I think that's one of the keys to really building something great here.
Well, just so that you understand the platform, the way it will work. So week 3 will be the fight night. So leading into the fight night, there'll be two weeks of talkback with Andy Raymond and Nathan and other people coming into it. People like yourselves will be asked to come onto the platform and give your opinion and talk about the background of the sport. We'll have trainers, we'll have managers, we'll have referees, judges. What we want to do is give a great understanding to the larger Australian public. We've got to understand now that we could potentially be reaching 27,000 people. A lot of them won't know nothing about boxing. So they're going to learn about the sport on the move. So we want to educate them and let them understand what it takes to bring a fighter over, to bring a fighter over to, for one of our fighters to reach the top so that they can get rated and eventually fight for a world title. We want them to understand about how to wrap your hands, just simple things like that. If we talk about it, we want to talk about the families and the backgrounds. There's a lot of boxing brings a lot of controversy also for people's lives. There's a lot of people that are out on the street, haven't got money to, for a lot of things that would seem normal to people. So there's stories behind every fighter, and that's what we're going to try and bring out, is a story behind every fighter, why they're fighting. Things like the Flamingo, we know Jacob Ng, if you understand the story behind him, why he's fighting. Jalen Tate, this is a young kid that was bullied all his life and then turned to boxing. To me now, I think he's probably one of the best fighters we've got in this, up-and-coming fighters that we've got in the country. People like Liam Paro, who's on the world stage now, just recently beat Montana Love, Dempsey McKean, who just fought the number one and went 12 rounds with. We need to find out why they turned to boxing and what's keeping them there and what's wanting some of these fighters to leave our sport too, because we have some fighters that are wanting to leave our sport. We got a young kid by the name of Justin Frost. He served our country over in Afghanistan. They're the stories we want to be talking about on the lead-up shows so that we can understand stuff, what they're going through. You know, people don't realise these young kids are training 2 and 3 times a day, and which means that they can't have a job, you know.
And this is going to be exponentially better for the sport, because not only is it going to publish people that we haven't previously seen and or known, it's going to make them accountable, which will make them better.
100%. I mean, look, I think on the last podcast, I called up about 20 fighters that weren't seen on Australian soil because obviously they weren't signed to the right promoters. And what I mean is, this is no disrespect to anybody, but of course, No Limits are trying to promote their fighters. And yes, they give opportunities to other fighters. But what we're going to try and do is bring, like I'll put it in my son's words, is A fighters against A+ fighters. We don't want an A fighter against a B fighter. And the only way we can do that is to work with other promoters. We can't have our fighters that are signed to the Ace Boxing Series fighting on every card. That's not going to happen.
Well, speaking of, sorry to interrupt, speaking of No Limit, it would be remiss of Ahmed and I not to bring up your explosive comments on our last series. What was the fallout, if you will, from our last YouTube chat where you made some waves in the boxing world?
Look, I mean, obviously, I had chats with Matt Rose after the podcast, so it hit home. And but look, you know, in the long run, we're adults, and we handled it with class. And we all got different point of views, and I've got my point of view on things, and they've got their point of view on things. But one thing we've got to remember now, we're on a completely different platform. We are on the #1 platform in Australia. We have got more eyes watching on our platform than anybody else, which is, we should be able to get 27 million people, or we have the potential of 27 million people. So we're not going to compare ourselves to No Limits or the Stand brand or anybody like that. If they want to compare themselves to us, we'll let them do that. But that's not what we want to do. We want to bring the sport to a wider audience. That's what we've got with this platform. And we want to obviously give that opportunity to a greater amount of fighters that weren't being seen in the past.
Were the words heated with Matt Rose?
No. He was pretty respectful, to be honest. I mean, look, I think he needs to. One thing he accepts is that I am the longest standing promoter in Australia. I've probably got more respect of most promoters, trainers, managers. Hence the reason we had 350 people turn up the other day at our launch, because they respect what I've done in the industry. If anyone, whether it be Matt Rose and the No Limits boys, whether it be Fidel Turkle, whether it be Danny Green, who I've sat him down with just recently because they have potential of going on the Stand platform, if they want to disrespect my time in the industry, well, I'm not going to be the one worse off. They're going to be the one worse off, because there's a lot of people aligned with me, and there's a lot of fighters that align with me that will just freeze the doors to them.
Ahmed, you heard it here first on Raw Sports.
Love it. Powerful. I actually contacted Matt Rose and asked him to come on and have a chat, but he declined the offer. But such is life when we keep going. All right, Ange, it's been quite the chat. We've learned all about this amazing new series, and I firmly believe it's going to be for the better of the sport moving forward. Any parting words for us, mate?
Tune in, mate. Number one in the sport, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of eyes that can be tap in. Sponsors, we're obviously always looking for sponsors. It'd be great to get some major anchor sponsors. We'd love an anchor sponsor to support us. We've had UltraTune for many years, who Sean, I deeply respect for the time and money and effort that he's put into me in trusting that I've been able to help fighters progress to world titles.
Angelo, we wish you all the best with your upcoming series on the 7 Mate Network.
Thank you very much, and then let's hope we can get you involved in some way.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. See ya.